good evening, everyone, and welcome to Outspoken Champions. This is a very special episode as it is the first of many, and we can't wait to bring you more of this live, hot content as it comes in. First and foremost, my name is Sean C. I'm joined today by my man, my brother, my friend, my homie, Natro. Nate,
Natro. Man, I'm so glad to be with y'all, man. I'm AKA Happy Hour Nate, AKA Nate Dog, man, AKA just your local neighborhood player, man. I'm so glad to be here today.
ain't that so true? So with that being said, folks, we're gonna waste no time. You came to listen to us here on Outspoken Champions, and we're gonna dive right into the first topic, and it's what everybody's talking about. It's COVID-19. It's swept the nation. It's swept the world. It's a worldwide pandemic that we're dealing with, and because of that, we don't have sports. So I'm sitting back. I'm watching things. I'm watching the social distancing, everything that's going on. People are doing their darndest to not really abide by what's being ordered by the government, and people are still out. So guess what? We're weeks away. It gets extended. Donald Trump just came with an extension of social distancing all the way out to April 30th now, which means that we're no closer to having sports, Nate.
Yeah, and it's a shame too, man, because as we know, sports is woven into the fabric of American culture, right? I mean, we should be having the the final participant in Final Four this week in the Final Four this weekend. Spring training should be going on. We got the NFL draft coming up, and so again, it's a tough time for everybody, but I do believe as well it gives us an opportunity. It gives us an opportunity to reset as Americans to really value what sports means to our culture, our community, and just our day-to-day life.
Well, and with that being said, our every day-to-day life, we never really seen what the life would be like without sports. Now that we're faced with it, I mean, this is really an interesting time. It's an interesting time for the sports books. If you've got any sports books, and I know for all you gamblers out there that are listening, you're probably going stir crazy. I know I'm going stir crazy as a bowler. I can't even get my bowl on right now. So, like, I've actually created my own styrofoam ball. Shout outs to Storm Bowling Balls for their YouTube page. And this idea of being able to put a bowling ball together out of styrofoam and duct tape or rock tape with kinetic tape. But it helps me work on my release, my swing. And when I do get back in the alley, it's going to be, I feel like I'm going to raise my averages, which is important. But back to what we were talking about in the world of sports being naked, sports books being empty. I mean, if you're a degenerate, you're probably on your sports book doing the online casinos, getting your head smacked off. And realistically, this is a time where you shouldn't even be reloading. This is a time where families are probably happier because they get to see more of their dad, more of their husband, because he's not stuck in front of the TV looking for another game to wager, another line to wager, whatever the case may be, right? But in the sense of we don't have sports, so now what are people doing? Before we got on air, Nate, you said that spring had been taken away from us. And so when we talk about in the equation of sports being taken away from us, we don't have the March Madness. I know opening day was like a couple of days ago, and now we're sitting here looking at a world of sports that just is bare. We have no one to really keep us entertained besides Netflix. Shout outs to the Ozarks, because I mean, if you're not watching the Ozarks right now, I don't know what you're
Oh my
watching.
God, I don't know what you're doing if you're not watching the Ozarks, man. And seriously, I don't know. And before we go any further, let's shout out how Storm Bowling. Find them on any platform. Sean, I know if you have their information, shout them out. I know you said YouTube, their website, all that. Let's make sure we get that plug because we are looking for supporters any way we can get them. And again, we definitely want to share the love and the shout outs as well. So I want to put that in there.
Most definitely. Here it is. I was not an avid bowler before finding this hobby a couple of months ago. My grandmother raised me in a bowling alley as a kid when my mother had to work nights at the hospital. Every Wednesday night, my grandmother would have me at the bowling alley with her. I'm ripping and running up and down the alley. This was back in the time where, folks, they could smoke cigarettes inside the bowling alley.
Oh, we all know that. You couldn't come up out there without your clothes smelling like straight, straight ashtray buckets.
Ashtray buckets and bowling alley food.
Yeah, man. Old Ruth, man, she was in there getting it, boy. I mean, yeah, yeah.
I've set back a little bit and become this. I was maybe a guy that had one bowling ball. I remember I went into AMF Bowling Center just in the middle of the day. I ran across this bowling ball that was a ceramic plastic dice, a big old red dice ball. And I was like, I have to have that. I didn't drill any holes in it. Fast forward 4 years later, I get into bowling a little bit. I start dipping my toes into bowling. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to drill some holes into this ball. Now, for those bowlers out there, plastic balls, urethane balls, they're really only used for one thing, and that's picking up spares. Well, I decided to join a league. Fast forwarding here, I decided to join a league in Cheyenne, Wyoming to pass time while I'm out here working on the news. And I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and bring out my pearly dice ball. Let me just show these people that I really got it like that. Well, was I wrong, Nate? Because the plastic ball was sliding up and down these house shots that are meant for tournament balls, right? And made by Storm or Hammer or Roto Grip or Rhino. I had no idea.
Excuse me. We're rocking with Storm. You know what I'm saying? For the terms of this podcast, I think that's a great start. You know what I mean?
Oh no! The point to my story is, I spent one night in the league without a actual league ball, okay, and then after that, now sitting here presently, I'm sitting on 5 Storm bowling balls. The reason why I went with Storm is because they're the Mercedes. Depending on which model you get, they're the Mercedes of bowling balls. But not only that, but every bowling ball that they make has a design fragrance to match. It's amazing. So right now I've got a ball that smells like papaya splash. I have a ball that smells like grape essence. I've got another ball that smells like orange ambrosia. Get that. This is crazy. But I love Storm, so shout outs to them. And I can't hopefully
Shout.
hopefully they sponsor me sometime soon.
Definitely. Getting to this whole COVID thing in spring. I want to talk a little bit. We touched on gambling. Gambling, obviously, this is a big year for gambling, with it becoming really mainstream and legal across the country. We see we're kind of in a pause period right now. I am happy. On the other hand, the NFL draft is going off, man. So I want to pivot to that. I think there's a lot of excitement. This is one of the better drafts that we've had in a few years. A lot of good skill players, quarterbacks coming out, a lot of quarterback movement and things of that sort. And I think the NFL did a good thing in that the draft is really a ceremony, right? I mean, it's a ceremony of our favorite athletes coming out of college football, going into the pros. And, half the time anyway, if you're not in the top 40, 50, you're taking that call from home anyway, right? So I'm glad that the NFL thought, for all of us sports fans, that it would be a shot at normalcy, if you will, to continue to have these draft ceremonies in Vegas. I wish the guys could have been there, but So what do you think about that, Sean? I know you're a Las Vegas Raider fan. Oh man, and I love you for that, baby. But so how do you feel about the NFL draft going off? I mean, do you think that's a positive, negative? What's your feelings on that?
Well, Nate, as a Raiders fan, it's really a trying time for Oakland people in general, because guess what? They don't got a football team anymore. Let me say that properly. They do not have a football team anymore in the city of Oakland. And so what that means is Las Vegas benefits from the Vegas Knights coming to Las Vegas, and all of a sudden they take an expansion team to the Stanley Cup. You have the draft that was in Tennessee last year. Tennessee did a great job of hosting, but people, I think what Roger Goodell and the NFL have done a great job of is extending the draft to different states, different cities, different venues, giving people the ultimate experience of the draft. So Las Vegas gets to post the draft. I don't think that there will be another draft that is this epic. One, because of where it's at location wise. Two, the Raiders have 2 picks in the first round again, but we'll get into that on another day when we cover the draft. And we appreciate you for tuning up here on Outspoken Champions.
Outspoken Champions, holler at us.
That's a fact. But number 3, then you look at the fact that you have a deep draft class. I've heard, this is from the experts that know more than I attest to, that you have 27 wide receivers that have first round grades that will go in the second and third rounds of the draft. That's amazing. So guess what? If you're not Jerry Jones, or if you're not Al Davis's son, Mark Davis, and you have to do the splash draft picks and pick a guy like, I don't know, Darius Hayward Bay just because he runs a 4.3 40, well, guess what? If you're not Jerry Jones or Mark Davis, you're probably not going to spend your first round pick on a wide receiver that blows it up at his pro day. So this is, like I said, this is a very, very intricate draft because you have so many offensive weapons that are available. You have defensive weapons, stud defensive linemen and linebackers all over the place. This is a deep draft. It's a huge draft class, and I can't wait to see. And I think the NFL did just the American people a service, not a disservice.
Agreed. No, they agree.
They did them a service by being able to give the people something to take their minds off of what they see every day on the news. It's crazy.
Agree. And you know what? And you're talking about the layout of the draft. Obviously, this is a big offensive draft this year. Last year was big defensive. This year is big offensive with all the quarterbacks coming out. And you have a bunch of skilled players that, or we got. There's so many skilled players coming out on the offensive side that we're forgetting about some of the running backs. You got great running backs that are going to come out in the second, third, fourth round that are going to be difference makers. And so what we know about the NFL is that it's the best TV show on television, right? I mean, we know that now. And so the NFL, understanding where they are, like in the American psyche, the entertainment spectrum, they said, you know what? This is a time where we can hold that mantle. We can keep one of our best TV shows going, and let's do it. And I appreciate them for doing that. They're not putting anybody else at risk. We can still enjoy our football. Some of the back-end football operations are a little bit hampered with having meetings and pro day workouts. But for the most part, if you ain't showed me nothing on 2 years, 3 years of tape, then you're probably not going to show me too much in the 2 or 3 weeks or two months running up to the draft. So I'm glad that they decided to go forward with it. And again, we look at teams like, for instance, you spoke about the Cowboys. They have a number of different needs. They're looking to make a splash. We're looking at teams like the Raiders. They're looking to make a splash. What are the Patriots going to do? They're looking to make a splash. The Bucks, all of a sudden, are a team in the national conversation. I love that. I love to see teams that are kind of on the fringes, like an Arizona Cardinals or a Tampa Bay Bucks team, get into the national conversation. So it's just it gives us something to talk about that's not negative, and that's a good thing, I think, for the American people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And speaking of staying with the NFL here, speaking of people moving addresses and changing faces all over the NFL, let's jump into a little bit of not a little bit, but a lot of what's going on with the NFL free agency. The biggest names to note.
Let's do it. Come on with it.
Yeah, the biggest names to note right off the top, and I'm going to get very disrespectful. I'm going to talk my sauce.
Hey, please, talk that talk, and we're going to get right into where people should go, where they shouldn't go, why they should get paid, why they shouldn't get paid. We're going to talk about all that right now.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely, man. This Outspoken Champions is the place to be. You look at the way Tom Brady was pretty much, I wouldn't say he was forced out of New England, but I think that, the well had run dry between his relationship with him and Belichick. Obviously, Robert Kraft looked at him as a son, but Robert Kraft can't be in the meeting rooms with Tommy and Bill Belichick or Josh McDaniels for that matter. And so now we have Tom Brady sitting as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer,
It's
which
crazy.
is
It's crazy.
pretty crazy to think of, but at the same time, you had to get your arms wrapped around the fact that Joe Montana went over to the Kansas City Chiefs. You had to get
That's
your
a fact.
arms wrapped around the fact that Jerry Rice was no longer going to be a San Francisco 49er, and he had to go over to the Oakland Raiders to keep his name and legacy alive. And he had
Johnny Unitas. He left the Colts. He went to the San Diego Chargers. I mean, Brett Favre, for him to have to wear that New York Jets jersey had to be painful.
No, it should have been more painful for him to wear that Minnesota Vikings jersey.
That Minnesota Vikings.
He was bugging.
People forget that he had to put that New York Jets because they weren't playing. They weren't playing with him.
I mean, it's a common theme around sports in general for a guy to be ousted out of the place that he called home for many years, and instead of going to a different conference, you stay right in your division. Now, Tom Brady didn't do that, but Chris Harris of the Denver Broncos goes to the LA Chargers, and they just flip-flop swap. Melvin Gordon goes to the Denver Broncos. It gets more and more amazing.
I mean, as an AFC West guy, and both of us were AFC West for the people out there. If you did not know, I represent the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, yes,
oh
sir,
gosh,
yes, sir,
here
yes,
we
sir.
go.
Yes, and my colleague here, he's a newly minted Las Vegas Raider fan, but and he hails from the great city of Denver, Colorado. So we know very well about this AFC West movement. It's been a historic thing. They're all good franchises, really, to be affiliated with. You see a lot of movement within the division. I believe more so. I have to look at the numbers more so than most other divisions. You see a lot of movement within the AFC West division because, number one, you're going to get taken care of. The fan bases are great. You're going to be in contention. You're going to play big games. AFC West, we play big games. So I just want to, in terms of free agency, we have Melvin Gordon, Chris Harris, big-time players that are moving teams, and they're still going to get their shot. It's nothing better. We've all been there. You remember AAU, Pop Warner, when you played against your old team, your old neighborhood, whatever it happened to be. Ain't nothing better than going up against when you still got it. If you feel like you still got it, going up against your old team, man. So, again, we talked about Tom Brady. To get back on topic, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I think Tom, Sean, see, if I really was to be honest, I think he's kind of on his Jordan Wizards type swag right now, where he said, look, I have nothing else to prove, man. Let me go ahead and bank this 50 million. My son, who's from another marriage, he lived down here, so I can get between here and New York City relatively easily. I can stay on the East Coast. I can bank this 50 million tax-free, state tax-free. And Bruce Arians, he's not going to bust my balls every day.
Well, the beauty of it all is that he's coming into a situation where he's got a close to 1,000-yard rusher in Jones, and then you've got 2,000-yard wide receivers between Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, who's phenomenal in my opinion. And then you sprinkle in a little bit of Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. Well, all of a sudden, without question, he has now upgraded his receiver room. He's not really upgraded his lines per se, but I'm pretty sure Bruce Arians knows that he's going to need something to protect his Maserati. So,
well, that's the question though. Like, cause you know what? As much as I respect Tom, I respect Tom Brady a hell of a lot. It's not in the game of football. You can't fake being great, man. It's real killers out there every day. Going out to war for their lunch meat. You dig?
mm-hmm.
So, and he's gone and done it with the best of them for 20 years. So, the question I have about the Bucs is that line fortified? Is that defense solid enough? They have a lot of pieces, but I think Todd Bowles really is going to be key. Byron Leftwich is going to be key in terms of how do they move this team to the next level? Because at the end of the day, we all love Tom, but you get down there in the NFC, you're in the NFC now. You're not playing Miami. You're not playing Buffalo. You're not playing hapless teams half the season. You're playing NFC teams who traditionally have great defense, particularly defensive linemen who are coming to get their lunch. You know what I'm saying? Every week. So, it's time. If he's not protected, I don't give a damn what kind of avocado ice cream he's eating. He's gonna get sat on his ass. So that's going to be the question that we need to see. And I think Tom will be fine. I mean, all things, if you protect Tom, he'll be fine. I think Bruce Arians is a great coach. I think I look at Tom as very similar to Carson Palmer in his latter stages at the Cardinals. I mean, they're very, very similar skill sets. Tom's probably a little better on the short and intermediate game. Carson was better on the deep ball. But I think you can put a system in place that would allow them to be effective. If they need a better line, they need a better defense, and they need a better running back. They don't have a good running back currently, in my opinion. So it's good. That's one of the best storylines we're going to see. You get a chance to see Tom go up against Drew Brees. I think that was a part of his decision-making as well. I believe they're both quietly competing with one another to get that triple crown, passing yards, touchdowns, and wins, or some I forget the other one, but they're neck and neck. And Tom got all the hardware, but I think he wants to outlast Drew Brees. That's why you notice Drew Brees got a 2-year deal, not a 1-year deal. He got a 2-year deal.
I don't necessarily agree with what the Saints did, but go ahead.
I don't either. The Saints we already see. We've already seen that Brees was the reason they lost their last playoff game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, and I think it was glaring that they had an opportunity to move on. They're going to stay with a player 1-2 years too long, and again, they're going to set their franchise back. But I'm not going to knock him because he's a legend.
And then you allow your backup to go to. You allow your backup to go to an interdivision team. He stays in the division, so now he's able to tell the Carolina Panthers things about New Orleans that they didn't already know. And so I believe that when you do that, the Saints have to think, you just have to expect the Saints to digress in just some form or another. Mike Thomas is their only bright spot. Alvin Kamara, their only bright spot. They did happen to bring in Emmanuel Sanders, which I think should upgrade and give Drew Brees a couple of number 1 targets. Okay.
And they've been looking for that. They've been looking for that second. They need somebody to stretch because Mike, as good as Mike is a possession receiver. Period. Point blank. I mean, he doesn't strike fear in the. And I think Emmanuel. We know Emmanuel's a pro's pro. So they've been looking for whether it was Brandon Marshall they signed, whether it was they looked at Antonio Brown. Obviously, they looked at Des Bryant. He popped his Achilles. So they're looking for somebody to balance out that field because they don't have another guy. They got a couple of speed guys, but they don't have anybody that really threatens outside of Thomas. And Thomas, given Drew Brees' skill set, he can get you down the field, but he's not going to. It's not like a Tyreek Hill where from anywhere you're a threat, and it opens up the field. They don't have that type of offense. They're very methodical, and so it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And again, I thought New Orleans mishandled it, but they were in between a rock and a hard place. You can't kick Drew Brees out the door because Peyton is not Belichick. That's a great segue into that conversation. Sean Payton is a great coach. As much as he's won, Bill Belichick has enough cachet to say, "Hey, Tom, goodbye." I mean, we're not paying you that. We'll give you 21. We're not giving you 25. And so it's going to be a great storyline going into the next season. And I want to see where where I like to see Jameis go, talking about as we move through the NFL free agency, Outspoken Champions season number 1, episode 1. Please come holler at us. We're out here on all platforms: Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Look it up. Instagram. I mean, anything you need, we're there. But looking at NFL free agency again is where we're at now. Jameis Winston, we're talking about the Bucs. Everybody's talking about Tom Brady. I would love to see Jameis go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me tell you why. I think Mike Tomlin would be a great coach for him. Number 2, I believe he has a very similar skill set to Ben Roethlisberger. Very similar. That's his comp to me. And so I'd love to see Jameis sit a year or two, let Ben flame out, let them pay him, because because he's gonna get hurt. Let him go in there. Jameis is 26 years old. You telling me you can't bring Jameis in on a 1-2 year deal? Let him learn something, clean up his bad habits, and that guy can win for you for the next 10 years. I'm telling you, I know he can. What you think about that?
You know, it's an interesting time for, again, and I say this, I keep going back to how things are interesting as the timing. Here it is, you have two guys that are at the peak of their careers. Okay? Unfortunately, I have to admit this. I'm going to put Cam along in this conversation with Jameis because both of them are both now free agents, and given pretty much every starting quarterback position in the NFL is pretty much solidified. You don't have a home for Cam Newton, who was let's say, a decorated 5-star athlete in high school, 5-star athlete in college, won a junior college
MVP,
national championship.
Heisman Trophy, national championship. Go ahead, man. Speak on that man's credentials, because I think people tripping. Honestly, I think people are really not putting the type of respect on that man's name that they should. But go ahead.
So you have a guy who has done nothing but play on the highest of levels, and now he's jobless, not a starting QB, which I think that's going to change because one of these two gentlemen will land in the Detroit Lions uniform. Here's my reason as to why.
Detroit, I didn't think about that. Tell me why. I mean, I'd like to hear more about that.
Matt Stafford.
I think they're going to draft Tua at number 3.
Matt Stafford has been holding this organization hostage for the last couple of years with marginal play at best. And it comes a point where, you know, if he's been around since 2009, he's had his run. He's been the guy for forever long, and then you end up with a guy like David Blau having to finish up the rest of your season, and you've only managed to win 9 games in 2 years, Matt Patricia. I think it's probably best served for you to take a hard look at Jameis Winston, take a hard look at Cam Newton, and decide to pull the trigger on one of the two. It doesn't matter.
I have to disagree from this standpoint. Number one, Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, they don't have that kind of time. They're already on notice. If they don't win this year, it's a wrap. They're out of there. And so Matt Stafford, in my opinion, is one of the best talents in football today. I think he's had. I'm not making no excuses for him. He's been in the league 10 years. You've been in the league 10 years. So, you know, at some point, you're either Tony Romo or you're Tom Brady or you're Aaron Rodgers or you gotta find your slot at some point, right? But Brian Quinn and Matt Patricia, they need to figure out how to get this team to a winning season. And I think Matt Patricia is trying. And number one, Matt Patricia is not a good people person, man. He's a fraud in my opinion. I don't care, you know, y'all Detroit Lions fans, please holler at me. Matt Patricia is a fraudulent. I'll spell it out for you if you need me to. He is not going to win. Those people do not respect him in the locker room. We see through that. It's not going to work. So I'm going to tell you right now, Matt Stafford is that guy. Before he got hurt last year, he was playing MVP football. He got hurt for the first time in 8 years. I think Matt Stafford is their answer right now. I believe you can draft Tua if Matt is not your guy, but you need Matt this year. Otherwise, the whole regime is going to change, and I'd rather see them draft Tua, have a new regime come in, and then, you know, Tua can start fresh. But, you know, as we look at Cam and Jameis, you know, the big thing I think for both of these guys, and it's funny that these are black quarterbacks that are, oh yeah, I said it for the crowd out there. These black quarterbacks are out here that are accomplished, and they're not getting the same jobs while Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, some of these guys are getting jobs. I can't believe, for instance, I mean, in Indy, you pay Phillip Rivers $25 million after what he put on tape last year.
To shot put. Listen, let me interject here. Phillip Rivers is one of the worst quarterbacks to ever lace up a pair of cleats. I don't care who wants to sit up here and tell me, well, he threw for this many yards and did this, that, and the third. All that is white noise when it comes down to me having my money on a game and I sit there and watch this old dude who already couldn't throw the ball. He had a terrible throwing motion before his play just started to decline due to Father Time. He was already washed. So now you take a washed product, and he's literally shot putting the football to Keenan Allen and Mike
Bro,
Williams. He can't even
listen.
throw a deep pass.
Man, you watched the game against the Raiders. He could have threw 7 interceptions in that game. 3 of them should have went for pick sixes. 3 of them.
And
Two
we
of them went.
we took 2 of them to the house. Don't worry.
To the house. No. And remember, one got called back early in the game.
That's a fact.
But you telling me you don't have a 5th or 6th round pick for Cam Newton and Indy on a $19 million deal, and you're gonna pay Phillip? You're gonna pay Phillip 25? Like
Frank Wright, you're gonna lose your job here shortly, because you don't know how to coach. You don't know how to coach because you don't stick with a guy like Jacoby Brissett, bring in another guy like Cam Newton or Jameis Winston, and you have a quarterback room that has experience, guys that have actually played games and won games. Phillip Rivers has never been in a Super Bowl. Jameis Winston has never been in a Super Bowl. But Cam has been in a Super Bowl. And you see this guy take his shirt off. He looks like a Greek god still. There's no way that Phillip Rivers is better suited for the job than Cam Newton. So I have a problem with you, Frank Wright, for doing that, for making that move, first of all. Second.
And you know what? And honestly, too, if these teams, I would like the NFL, this is something that I would propose. If you're not going to, stop holding these players. When the free agency starts, one of the things I wish these teams would let go of a player early so that teams don't make a decision, so they're not stuck into, okay, I got to sign this person or that person, or all the quarterbacks are going to be gone. They hold on to players, and then they cut them later on, like kind of how Dallas did. Remember Dallas did Dez Bryant like this a couple years ago. They cut him like in August, right before the season, and by that time, all the roster spots was filled up.
And you're damaged goods to the NFL at that point. Once Jerry puts a stamp on you as damaged goods, you can count it. You can count it and see you buy. We'll talk about Dez Bryant on another episode of Outspoken Champions. How he's been relieved from the league for 2 years, and he's still trying to get back in the NFL. And his climb.
Kansas City, Dez. Hey, Dez, we got you out here, man. Call in with us, man. We want to hear what you're doing, what you're working out on. We see you working with the great Patrick Mahomes, MVP of the NFL, also the youngest man to throw for 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, winning NFL MVP and a Super Bowl MVP and a Super Bowl ring. So I just want to drop that in there. You know what I mean? So, Sean C., NBA playoffs, NBA season. Would you like to see them continue where they left off? Just set the seating where it's at. Let's say they had to start in August. Would you be cool with that?
I'm gonna be cool with any sports that is being played, and I'm not sitting around watching Sopranos reruns and Oz reruns. Shout outs to HBO, because I'm literally quarantining, sitting in the home. So.
Okay. With that being said, would you be cool with, let's say we had just a playoffs, just no fans in the stadiums? Which, again, I understand what's going on. I'm fine with that now. Let's just have the teams, all the guys are tested, all the people are tested. Let's have the teams play and we watch it on TV. Would you be cool with that, or do you?
I'd rather we wait until everything shakes out. We get everything settled. People can go back to somewhat little bits of normal life, whatever that may look like. But at least we are operating underneath the tents that we don't have to worry about spreading this disease further. Now, this disease has been around for some time. So it's not like this just popped up in December and we weren't able to get ahead of it, and now we are plagued with this for the rest of our lives. Eventually, this will die off as the summer months get ready to approach. The flu season will die. You can't have a flu during the summer. Okay? So there's that positive side to it. So I'd rather wait and make sure that we can have the games the way we need. You can't have a basketball game with no crowd. How does the momentum swing when you guys are playing a glorified pickup game? How do
Okay.
how do we
I
get
mean,
the fans into it as the home team, LeBron James? How does LeBron and Anthony Davis get into a 10-0 run against the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals when they're already down by 5 points with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter of Game 3? You
well,
understand?
and I think that's a great point. And another thing, I would like to have seen the NBA start their season in January and run it through August anyway, instead of it being, because the basketball to me is not a winter sport. I don't want to see basketball. I want to see basketball and baseball kind of that in their lane. I want to see NHL and football as the winter sports versus having basketball go through the spring and the summer anyway. So it may end up that we have once we restart this thing, we have it set up to where okay, now we're playing basketball and the championships are like in the summertime, Labor Day. I would love to see the NBA championships right around in the summertime versus watch. And ain't nobody paying attention to basketball in November, December, January anyway. In my opinion.
There's a lot of people who are, Nate. Happy hour, Nate. I'm here to tell you, for the gamblers out there, they're paying attention to preseason basketball. They're looking at summer league basketball. They're looking at soon as the NBA finals finish, the draft happens, and summer league comes out. The top prospects. We were watching summer league. ESPN was highlighting summer league because of Zion Williamson. We couldn't wait for Zion's debut in the summer league, so you can't say that. However,
well, I tell you what, gamblers, y'all watching the grass grow, brother. I mean, y'all, it's as long as it's on, gambling's going to be involved in it. I'm not saying that there's always going to be interest. I'm talking from a seasonal perspective for the casual fan to get the most out of the product.
well, Outspoken Champions doesn't really host many casual fans, Nate. We host the avid sports goers, the people that are interested in what's happening in the world of sports. Speaking of Outspoken Champions, and as we transition here,
speak on it.
The MLB has the best plan in place for how to resume a season or for how to pick up a season and condense it and make it whole. So,
hey, and before you go there, before we pivot there, tell me who has the hottest bowling ball in the game right now.
A Storm Phase 3 or a Storm Omega Crux or a Storm Virtual Tour from 2016. Those are pretty much the top of the upper echelon balls that you're going to see around $220 or more.
In the game. So when y'all out there at the bowling alleys, man, check that out. You know what I mean? I'm probably, you know me, man. I'm a solid 117 to 150. You know what I mean? But if if I'm feeling right, I might go beat Peter Bone any day. Peter Bone. I don't know what his name is, but Storm Bowling Balls. You need to go check them out. We want to throw that in there. So MLB 32 game season. Lay that out for me in terms of what they're looking at to.
So the MLB they've done it again when everybody else is figuring out how they can possibly salvage the rest of their season or begin their season in the baseball world. Well, guess what? They decided to come up with a 32 game season where you would only face your division. So you'll get in the NL West, Giants versus Dodgers, Dodgers versus Rockies, Dodgers versus Padres, Dodgers versus Diamondbacks, and that's it for 32 games. Lots of double headers, but in 32 days, you will get all the baseball in, and then guess what? For the first time, you will see the division winners face off in the playoffs in October. So they didn't miss a beat with that idea. Now, it's just an idea they're floating around. Obviously, the big wigs will have to decide what is the best measure of moving forward with your season, okay? And so we, as the avid sports watchers, we're just hoping that we get a product. For us baseball lovers, heck, spring training was just getting underway, and then that gets swept from underneath your feet. March Madness, the conference tournaments didn't even get a chance to play That's the best part of the NCAA basketball season is the conference tournament. Then you get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. I would look at it like this. So if we're going to do 32, I assume the first 2 months of the MLB season is going to be canceled for obvious reasons. I like to see it more 64 because I think that's more sustainable. I would actually like to see the MLB season shortened to 100 games versus the 162. I think it's too long, and I think their season is too long.
Well, I mean, here it is, just like in the NFL. If you add more games in the MLB, they're condensing the amount of games, but you're playing more back-to-back. So guess what? You have to expand your roster. You got to put more arms in the bullpen. Those are the things that are awarded to these clubs. So it's no disadvantage for anybody involved. Now, obviously, the Dodgers have made some very, very big splashes, signing Mookie Betts or trading for Mookie Betts and David Price. The Red Sox, they're just in a shame roll because they know that they're caught cheating too, just like the Astros, swept underneath the rug. But yet, you give away arguably your best leadoff man, two-spot man, and then one of your valuable arms in your rotation in David Price. So guess what? I'm looking at the way baseball is comprising this season or this idea of a 32-game season, and I'm just thinking to myself, hey, if you're the NBA, you might want to look into that. You might want to think about, hey, is this a situation where I could just stop here, 32 games, get the most action-packed games, the most meaningful games, because the division games are what matter the most. So you get all these division games out of the way, and then the first time you get to see the Dodgers and Nationals meet up is right there in the playoffs. So I think that's a product. It's an idea that will go over well for the MLB fan base. I strongly believe that, Nate, and I'm going to stick by that. Here on Outspoken Champions, we're going to speak our mind, and as we say around the way, we're going to talk our sauce on a daily basis. Now, with that being said, we appreciate you folks for tuning in here on the first episode of Outspoken Champions. There is many more episodes to come. I want to thank you guys for just taking a little bit of time while you're riding down the road or while you're sitting at home quarantining and you're looking for some fresh new content and you know about us. We appreciate you for taking the time to listen to us today. So on behalf of Outspoken Champions, I'm going to say for myself, thank you for tuning in. And Nate, did you want to say anything to the people before we leave?
Man, I echo your sentiments. Share us, like us. If you got people, your friends, your wife, your enemies, your side chick, man, please, man, send that on. We have something different every day. It's not just sports. It's everything, man. And this thing's going to continue to evolve. Appreciate everybody for coming out listening to the first one. It's only going to get better. Again, you can find my man, Sean C. You're going to go ahead and give me one of your handles. Man, you can find me on Instagram, SeanBoyd.tv. SeanBoydTV. That's all you gotta look up. And then if you check me on Twitter, my handle on Twitter is SeanBKGWN5. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. You can even also find me on Facebook at Sean Boyd space KGWN. Man, and you can find me right here. Outspoken Champions, Mosby_Nate on Instagram. I'm out here all the time. Again, I really don't do too much social media, but I love to hear the feedback from the fans, and as this thing continues to grow, please let me know.
So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Like and subscribe, or I'm not putting out another video. I'll holler.
Y'all holler.